Y'all ready to get started? So, sometimes it's rhetorical. I was. Ah, we'll probably won't have ice till Monday night, but it may be Sunday night. It might be Sunday morning. I don't know. Who knows when? Um, I think that we'll just prepare for it if it happens. If it does happen and we have ice and we have to close church, I'm certain I will just appear to you all via Zoom. So it'll be fine. You'll still get the word. Yeah, I learned that one at some point in my life. All right, so I'm gonna tell y'all a little story tonight that y'all may or may not know. So when I was about 19 years old, I was working at this Longhorns restaurant down in Newnan, Georgia, and I was waiting on tables, and I met that one right there, and I fell in love with her, and so we were really good friends. Probably I'd say best friends. I'm pretty sure she knew I loved her, but she didn't tell me that she knew, and I didn't have the courage to tell her. So, needless to say, at some point, she moved back to her hometown, or where she said it was her hometown, because really it wasn't her hometown. And I went on to college and had 2 kids, and then she got married and had some kids and 2 kids, and but for 10 years or so, I always wondered where she was at, because I loved her so much. I really did love her, bottom of my heart. And I would pray to God, God, just show me where she's at. Just put her back in my life. I didn't know how to get in touch with her. Changed her phone number about 8,500 times. And then, she'd gotten married, so I didn't know her. I didn't know she'd gotten married. I didn't know where she was at in her life, but, I couldn't find her anywhere under her maiden name or whatever. And so I had been, I would just pray all the time. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many times I prayed, God, just show me where she's at. God, just, bring her back into my life. I try to bargain with God, right? If you'll just bring her back in my life, God, I promise you I'll do this, that, and the other, right? And it was just this whole thing where I'm just trying to, get God to give me back her. And I was like, I promise I will make my move this time, I'll tell her I love her, I'll do all this stuff, because I didn't do any of that stuff when we were friends, and because I was a chicken. And that's just truth. And so one day I was at my office, and I got a reason telling y'all this story, so just bear with me. So I was at my office one day, and my secretary comes in there and she says, hey, there's a Pam Green on the phone. Do you want to talk to her? And I said, what did you just say? I said, Pam Green? She said, yeah, she said that she used to know you a long time ago. I said, yes, I want to talk to her. Yes, absolutely, I want to talk to her, right? And so I talked to her, and anyway, so one thing led to another, and we got married. And we were married for few years, and we had I had 2 children. She had 2 children. Remember I told you that part, right? So now we got 4 kids, and by the way, that's 4 girls. And so I would say that there were a lot of tears and hair pulling, not between us, but the kids, right? And a lot of things going on, and so there's a lot of if y'all ever tried to blend a family, it can be difficult, right? There should be a class on that before you get married. And a blended family, and so there was a lot, right? It was a struggle, and then we had our son, and that was a blessing, is a blessing, not was, is a blessing, and and we had struggles, and then and it got hard, right? It got hard, and we had some pretty difficult times, and we got divorced. And that was a difficult time, right? We thought that this is really hard, and so like we can't do this anymore. This is miserable. What are we even doing here? Why are we doing this, right? There's got to be something else better out there, and there's all these things, right? And so then we get divorced, and then we realized at some point in that 2 years or so that we were divorced, that maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side, and maybe the thing I thought would be better is not better, and so we got back married, and here we are now today, and what I'm telling you is for a reason. Let me read a story to you from the Bible, and then I'll come back to my story. Genesis 26, verse 1. There was a famine in the land, besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. Now, this Gerar is Canaan. Okay, so he's in Canaan. He's in the promised land. Remember, Canaan is the place that God promised the Israelites that he would give them. It was a land of milk and honey. There was fruit there. Everything was good in Canaan. And so that's where Isaac is at this time. But there's a famine, okay? There's a drought. There's no food there. They're struggling, okay? You got to remember that there's not a lot of rivers in that area. So if there's not a lot of rivers in that area, there's not a lot of water in that area. So they need rain. And if it doesn't rain, that's a problem. Okay, it's still a problem if it doesn't rain and you got rivers, because your rivers will dry up. But they got an even bigger problem because they don't have a lot of rivers. Okay, and so they're in Canaan. And then the Lord appeared to Isaac, and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land of which I shall tell you. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and to your descendants I give all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. And I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So Isaac dwelt in Gerar." Now, before I get into that, I want you to think about this for your personal life, okay? Have you ever prayed for something? Have you ever prayed for a relationship? Have you ever prayed for a career or a job? Have you ever prayed for a college or a scholarship? Have you ever prayed for a child? Have you ever had a dream that you wanted to fulfill something? You had a goal. When we're those guys in the back's age over here on the right side, we have dreams and things that we believe we can do. When we grow up, we want to be, right? I remember one time asking Zane what he wanted to be when he grew up, and it was like Spider-Man and a doctor and a vet, and it was like all these things, and I was like, you want to be all of that? Yeah, I want to be all of it, right? You have all these big dreams when you're a kid, and then as you get older, sometimes life gets in the way, and you kind of lose those dreams. But think about it. Have you ever prayed for something? Now, in this society that they were living in, it was very agrarian, very agricultural community. So, they needed to be able to grow food. That's how they ate. They needed to be able to, that was their commerce. That's what they did. But here, there's a problem. There's no water. Okay? So Isaac's like, okay, I'm going to go to Egypt. Okay? I'm going to go to Egypt. Because in Egypt, they got grain. In Egypt, they got food. In Egypt, they got water. In Egypt, they've got people. In Egypt, they've got a government. In Egypt, they've got what I need. And so with his natural eyes, he saw Egypt as a way out. He saw Egypt as the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Because in where I'm at right now, there's a drought. And it's hard. And I'm struggling. And it don't feel like I used to feel. And I'm not even sure this is where I'm supposed to be anymore. And I don't even know why I prayed for this, because this sucks. And Egypt's over there, and Egypt's what I think I need. Okay? But there was a price to pay in Egypt. Because if he went to Egypt and he got their grain and he drank their water and he moved his family to Egypt, he was going to pay with bondage and slavery, and he was going to give up his dream, and there was no God in Egypt. His God wasn't in Egypt. His promise wasn't in Egypt. Remember, he was in his promise. He was in Canaan. It was hard, but it was his promise. It wasn't like he thought it was going to be, but it was his promise. It was the thing that he had prayed for. Okay? See, just because where you're at's hard right now doesn't mean it's not where you're supposed to be at. You prayed for this. This is what you prayed for, right? And so just because something looks better out there, looks easier out there, maybe I'm going to try something else different, God's not in that. He's in where you're at. So Egypt was really just a distraction from his promise, right? And there's a lot of things, y'all, that look really good on the outside, that look really good to our natural eye or to our, our thoughts, our feelings, or whatever, but they're not good for us. It's a trap. See, Satan will bait and switch you, right? Right? If I just had this, if I just had that, if I could just get this job, if I, then you get that job, you're excited about it, whatever, but then it gets hard. It's not fun anymore. It's not easy anymore, right? And so then, you start hating it. So then you start looking for something else, and God's like, look, this is what you need to, I got to get to the next one. See, I'm trying to get ahead of myself, but this is the promise right here. This is the promise. This relationship, this marriage, you stood before God. That's the promise, right? That kid that you want to strangle, that's your promise. That's the one you prayed for, right? That's the one that you thanked God for when he was born. Oh, did I say he? Sorry. Told on myself. You know what I'm saying? That dream that you said you wanted, that thing you begged God to let you get into. Y'all asked Leighton sometime about how hard Georgia State Patrol School was. Right? He said, I'm not quitting. I'm not going to quit. I want this, right? I don't care if it's hard. I'm not quitting. I'm going to do this. So, the thing that, you want, your dream, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Right? And so it would have been easier for him to just go to Egypt. It would have been easier to walk out of that dry land where the wells had been filled up with dirt, y'all. They had filled up the Philistines had filled up Abraham's wells with dirt. All right? This seemed like an impossible task. So here Satan is saying, Egypt's over here, it's easy. And here God is saying, don't go. Stay here and sow. Don't go. Stay here and sow. Sow into the land that you're in. Sow into the relationship that you're in. Sow into your children. Don't give up on them. Sow into that dream that you have inside of your heart. Sow into it. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. You see, because at one time, that thing that right now you're trying to figure a way out of is the thing you prayed your way into. And while Egypt looks good, it's not good for you. So, let's talk about that. If you go to Egypt and you abandon what God's given you, you abandon what you prayed for, newsflash, you take your baggage with you to Egypt. I'm just talking about me. Y'all just sit there like y'all don't know what I'm talking about. That's okay. You take your baggage into Egypt with you, okay? And you take all your characteristics and your traits with you into Egypt. You know what you take into Egypt? You. You take you into Egypt, okay? And by the way, there's hurting people in Egypt also. So when you get over there and you think it's really good, you've run into people that are hurting. Okay? So Egypt is just not what you think. Paul said in Philippians 4:11 that I have learned to be content in whatever state that I am in. That's what Paul said. And I think that oftentimes being content is something that's hard for us. It's hard for me anyways, right? I got this, but I want this. I need that. I want to do this. I want to get that, whatever. And, and it's not, there's always like this idea that I need something else. But really, when you look around, you got what you need, right? So, Jesus said, or God said to Isaac, don't go to Egypt, stay and sow. Now, sowing is more than just throwing seeds. Okay? I mean, if Isaac would have went out there and it's drought and it's dusty and the ground is hard, right? Because ground is hard when it's dry, right? And he'd have went out there and just took a handful of grain seeds and just threw them out and scattered them out and just went on. You know what would have happened? Nothing. We tried to plant a garden once. I'll just say it's not easy, is it, honey? We had this great idea. We're going to plant this garden, right? We built us a little box. Got us some seed, got us some soil. Yeah, it was during COVID, like we were going to grow our own food. Yeah. It was good stuff. You know how much fruit and vegetables we got out of that box? 0. None. Not a thing did we grow. Not one thing. Now, I will kill an aloe plant, if that tells you how great of a farmer that I am. Not a good one. But I know enough to know that you can't just throw the seed on the ground and hope it grows, right? And, back then, they didn't have tractors, right? And if I had a tractor, I probably wouldn't know how to use it, so I didn't have a tractor either. And but they would, hook up the cattle to the why did I just forget what it was called? Yoke. They would hook up the cattle to the yoke, and then they'd take the cattle, and then they would plow the fields, right? And then my grandpa, when I was little, he had a bunch of farmland, and so he'd grow corn and beans and okra, and we'd spend a lot of time in the field picking all that stuff. But, he'd have a tiller, and he'd till up the ground, and all that stuff. But you have to till up the ground. You have to plow the ground, right? So in order to sow in where you're at in your relationship or in your job or with your child, you've got to be willing to talk about those hard questions. You've got to be willing to address those hard issues, right? You can't just ignore that thing that's bothering you because it's difficult to talk about. One thing that we said when we got back together was that we recognized, I'm just telling all our business tonight, honey. Sorry, I should have warned you before you got here. But one thing that we talked about was that we had avoided a lot of things because, it was easier not to talk about them. We'd have a fight, and then we'd cool down and wouldn't be mad anymore. But if we talked about it, we were just going to have another fight. And we were really happy not to be fighting right then. So, we just didn't bring it up anymore until the next time that somebody got mad and then we were fighting again anyways, right? So we avoided those difficult conversations because in the moment it was just easier, right? And when we got back together this time, one thing that we said, we were not going to avoid difficult conversations and difficult topics. We were going to talk about it. We were going to address it, right? And it's important to be vulnerable with your spouse. It's important to be vulnerable with your children. You know that you've made mistakes in your life. It's okay to tell your children about some of them. You don't have to tell them about the worst things in the world, but they need to know you're a real person. Me and Zane were going down the road the other day, and he was, basically acting like I had never lived. I mean, like it didn't matter what I said. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know how it is. And he told me this morning, he said, this is 2026. That's not how it is in 2026. I said, son, it's been like this since Jesus walked the earth. It was like that in 1996. I said, dude, I am 47 years old. You think I know nothing? I don't understand you. This is the conversation that we're having. But, it's okay to apologize when you get it wrong to your children. Show them how to ask for forgiveness. Show them what it really, what it looks like to say, you know what, I messed up. I'm sorry. All right? Now, this tilling the ground, this plowing the ground here, all right? We've got to put in the work and the effort. Because if you just give up and abandon it, you're just going to go right into something else that you're either going to put the work and the effort in, or you're going to leave that too. Do you know that there's a percentage of marriages that fail, the first marriages that fail, first-time marriages fail, it's like 48% or something like that. But second-time marriages fail more in a higher percentage than first-time marriages. In other words, first-time marriages fail around 47, 48% of the time. Second-time marriages fail around 60% of the time. Third-time marriages fail even more than that, and the pattern keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. You see? Every relationship requires work. And so one thing that we've got to do, we have to pray for our spouses. I told my group Sunday, pray for your spouse. Every day, pray for them. Right? Pray for your kid. Pray for your boss. Listen, let's talk about jobs. That job that you have, you prayed for it. You needed it. You prayed, God, give me a job. God, give me a job. Right? I need some money. I need an income. Give it to me, God. Now that you're there and you've got it, what are you doing? Hating it every day? Looking at all the negative stuff in it, right? Pray for the people. Pray for your coworkers. Pray for your boss. Pray for your people, okay? Put in the effort where you're at instead of everybody's always trying to find something better. I remember I used to coach fast pitch softball. I coached that for many years. And it was like everybody was always trying to find a better team to get on. Everybody's trying to find a better coach, a better organization, a better level, gold, bronze, silver, whatever it was at the time. I don't even remember them all now. But everybody's always trying to find something better. What about just staying where you're at and working hard at where you're at? What about just digging in and putting in the work where you're at so God can bless you where you're at? And look, you're going to say, well, it came easy before. This is a trap right here. It came easy. When we first got together, it was easy. We were in love. Just made my heart flutter when they walked in the room. They called me on the phone. I get so excited. But now I don't feel like that anymore. Now it's hard. Truth is, it was work then. You just didn't mind it then. Right? It wasn't, you would pick up that phone and put in that effort, make that phone call, send that text, send that love letter, right? Dance in the kitchen. All those things. You would go to the movie you didn't really want to watch your sleep. Y'all know anybody that falls asleep before they even start the movie? But y'all can go to the movie together and sleep. I can tell you how many times that girl has fallen asleep on my arm and when the movie hadn't even started. I'm like, why are we here? We could have slept at home. That's a good nap. She said, it was the most peace I had. Do you know how many kids we have at home? Or maybe you don't really like sports, but you'd go to sports with your significant other because they liked it. You do stuff that you didn't necessarily like. And then as we get more comfortable in our relationship, we stop doing all those things, right? We stop putting in the work. So it's not that it wasn't work in the beginning. It was just a lot easier because it had all the feelings that went with it, okay? Or what about, helping with the dishes when you're tired too? Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that. But I bet when Jacob was plowing that field, Isaac was plowing that field, I bet he thought, what am I doing? This ground is so hard. It's just dust flying up. I mean, look at all these rocks. Look at all this stuff. How is this ever going to work, God? This makes no sense, right? And God just kept saying, stay, so, stay, so. I bet his wives and his kids were like, why are we still here? There's food over there in Egypt. Why are we still here, Dad? We need to go. And Isaac just kept hearing from God, just stay, just stay, just stay. Just because the ground was hard and dry didn't mean it wasn't the promised land. So once he got it tilled up, then what did you have to do? Anybody ever planted a garden before? Or a field of corn before? When you till up the ground, what else comes up? Rocks, right? Rocks, weeds, all kinds of stuff comes up, right? So then you got to go walking around and find those rocks and pick them up and throw them out of your garden, right? Y'all ain't from the country. Y'all don't know that. We'd have to bend over, pick up the rocks, throw them, bend over, pick up the rocks, throw them, right? Now, what am I telling you about that? There's some things y'all need to throw out of your relationships. Stop remembering every mistake that person's ever made in their life. Y'all, well, I won't tell y'all about that because I'll get in trouble, but you got to forgive and you got to let it go. If you don't let it go, you're not really forgiven. If you bring it up every time you get mad, you ain't really forgiving anybody. That's right, right? And so you got to let that go. You got to let that anger go, right? Let that anger go. Get that out of your life. Now, there's also people and things that you got to get out of your life too that don't need to be there. And you got to pray about that, okay? Let God show you what's good for you and what's not good for you. Listen to your pastor. The word tells you to cast out the talebearer and the strife will cease. That's in Proverbs. Cast out the talebearer and the strife will cease. Well, a talebearer is not somebody that tells lies, and this is the problem that we don't recognize. If somebody lies on you, it's easy to get rid of them, right? Because you ain't going to lie on me. I'm just going to tell you. You go spreading lies about me, I'm there. We're going to go nose to nose. I'm just kidding. But it's easy to it's easy to get somebody out of your life that's lying on you and your family, right? But what about somebody that's not lying, but they're just telling the truth about you to other people? Because that's what a talebearer is. A talebearer is somebody that is bearing tales, truthful tales, gossipers. They're just telling your business to everybody, creating strife in your life, creating strife in your relationship. You see what I'm saying? It's not necessarily lies, but it's creating problems. You don't need those kind of people in your life. You need those people to either hush or leave. I didn't write the Bible. I'm just telling y'all what it says. Yes. Don't matter. For this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. You got a new family. There are other things that you got to get out of your life that's creating problems and havoc in your life. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's alcohol. Maybe that's drugs. Maybe that's video games. Maybe that's golf. I don't know what that is. But whatever it is, you gotta deal with that, right? That's why it's so important that we go to the Holy Spirit to show us and guide us and direct us, right? There's just things that we have to remove. One thing that's really big, y'all aren't gonna like this one, but I'm gonna tell you anyways, is past trauma. Past trauma, you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. You cannot keep hiding from it. You cannot keep pretending like it's not there. You cannot keep just suppressing it and burying it. You have to deal with it, because if you don't deal with it, it will always be there. You can't remove it out of the equation until you deal with it. And that's hard. And I know y'all don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. See, this is what I was trying to tell y'all Sunday, but sort of in a different way, I guess. I didn't really hit it head on, but, you know, sometimes when you're having an argument with somebody, let me start over. Sometimes when something happens, right, and you do something, but you don't mean it in a bad way, like you don't mean anything by it, but because of their trauma, they equate it to something that happened to them in their past. So sometimes what your reaction isn't really what's happening in that moment. It's about something that happened to you a long time ago that you never dealt with. And so your partner's like, what'd I do? What's wrong? Why won't you talk to me? Why won't you tell me what's going on? You know, why do you keep saying everything's fine when I can clearly see everything's not fine? Why do I have to ask you 100 times what's wrong? I know something's wrong. Just tell me what's wrong. Right? We have to deal with the things in our past. We cannot ignore them. They don't go away just because they don't go away by you ignoring them. It just doesn't happen. All right? Now, one of the big reasons that we got to get these rocks out and these other things out that aren't supposed to be there is so that the root system can grow. We can have a bigger root system. All right? And if you have a bigger root system, you'll have a healthier, stable, better supported crop. And I guess it's what it says is that the bigger the roots, the bigger the fruit. So we got to do that hard work and get that stuff out of our life. And listen, that requires being vulnerable. And I understand that that's something that keeps coming up because it's really what you have to have. You have to have vulnerability in your relationships, right? You got to be your authentic self. If you're pretending to be somebody else, you're not you. You're not being you, right? So you got to be vulnerable and be honest. All right, and then the next thing after we get the rocks out is they got to plant the seeds, right? It's time to spread the seeds. It's time to plant the seeds. And this is what I really want to talk to you guys about just for the next few minutes that I have left, is that it is so important to plant the seeds in your relationships, in your kids, in your jobs, in your dreams. It's important to plant good seed. Because remember, you can't plant apple seeds and get banana trees. So whatever seeds you plant, that is the fruit that's coming up. Okay? So if you plant seeds of forgiveness, then you're going to get forgiven. You're going to get forgiveness, right? You're going to get much better. If you plant compassion, you're going to get compassion. All right? If you're loving on that person, being kind to that person, you're going to get that back. Okay? You've got to plant those seeds. You need to be praying. I cannot say this too many times. Praying for your spouse. Praying for your, even if it's you own the business, pray for the business. You work for the business, pray for the business. Okay? You need to be praying for the things and people that are in your lives. You know, so every time one of y'all come up, or I learned this is a long, long time ago that I figured this one out, but if two people aren't talking or two people are at odds with each other, like let's say a mother and a daughter, or, well, let's just say a mother and a daughter, and they're at odds, they're not talking, something they hadn't talked for long. I always tell them, pray for each other. Like if it's one of y'all, I say, pray for that person, pray for them. If I could tell them, I would tell them to pray for that person, because when you pray for each other, your hearts turn towards each other. That's just how it works, right? When you pray for that person, your hearts are just drawn together, okay? But then also on top of that, pray together. Pray together. Even if you don't have time to sit down and read the Bible together, pray together. It can be a 20-second prayer. Right before you go to sleep, right when you wake up, on the phone at lunch. Just pray together. Pray for your kids together, right? Do little things together. All right? Plant those seeds, though. Go on those dates. All right? Do those little things. Have those conversations where you're actually listening. I have a really bad problem with that. I want to give you the solution. That's how my mind works. I got this problem, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me tell you 3 ways you can fix it. Here's what you do. It's like, I don't care. I don't want you to tell me how to fix it. I just want you to listen. I hear, you're a horrible listener. I'm like, why? I gave you 3. What do you mean I'm a horrible listener? I just told you how to fix your problem. How could I be a bad listener? You are a horrible listener. I'm being honest with y'all. I'm telling y'all, that's me because I want to fix it. I don't want to sit around and talk about it for 30 minutes. I figured out the answer 2 minutes into this conversation. I already knew how to fix it, right? But that's not what they want. They want to tell you how they feel and why they feel about it, and then maybe they'll come around and figuring out the solution. So if you're like me, just try to listen. Try to be empathetic. I hear what you're saying. Oh, I see that. I understand that, right? And not sarcastically. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. That did sound a little sarcastic. I didn't mean it that way, right? I did not mean it that way. I'm in trouble. I'm still practicing. I'm getting better at this one, all right? Do those little things you used to do. I tell you that all the time. Go remember what you did before. You know, the opening the doors, the love notes, right? The cooking, the special thing that person likes that maybe you don't even like, right? Just go back to doing those things. And remember the things that you love about that person, right? Focus on those things. Don't just always focus on the negative things, the thing that irritates you now that you thought was cute before. Now it gets on your nerves, right? Think about all the positive things that they do and not just that negative thing, all right? All right, so now we got our seed in the ground, all right? And now what do we got to do? We got to water it, all right? We got to water the seeds. We got to water the ground, keep it dry. Keep it moist. And we got to pull out the weeds, right? Tammy could preach this message. We got to pull out the weeds, right? Got to get the weeds out, all right? Because let me tell you something. Satan wants to divide you. He wants to divide you from your friends. He wants to divide you from your church. You know, people pray, God, send me to a church. Get me a church. I want a pastor. Lord, I want to get somewhere where I can learn the word. I want to get somewhere where I can be taught. I want to grow. I want to grow closer to you. God gives them a church. Everything's good for a few months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. And then in comes the tailbearer. In comes Satan. They didn't invite you to lunch. They must not like you. Pastor didn't even shake your hand today. I guess she just went the other direction when you walked up. Oh, you didn't get invited to this. Oh, she must be preaching at you. Somebody must have told her. Just garbage. Just the devil trying to divide you from your church, from your pastor. Let me tell you something. You know, the devil knows better than to stand outside and try to attack because he knows that ain't going to work. We'll see him coming. So you know what he does? He tries to get in and then create division. And he does the same thing in your relationships. Do the same thing with you and your kids. Same thing with your friends. Same thing with your job. Right? Because he wants to divide. He's a divider. You know why he's a divider? Because the word says if two people agree touching anything, they shall have it. Agreement is powerful. So if you can get an agreement with somebody, you can touch heaven. So the devil's like, let's just keep them mad at each other. Just keep them apart. Let's just get them out there on an island to themselves because, you don't really got to go to church to be a Christian anyways. Right? Isn't that what everybody says? And it's true, you don't. That's right, you don't. But it's really hard to grow and mature and have a strong faith and walk in the power of God when you don't go to church and you don't have a pastor and you don't have a group of people that love on you. So the devil will lie to you. He will tell you things that are true, but bait and switch on you. See? So we got to get in agreement. And listen, if you're having an argument with somebody, coworker, spouse, a kid, whoever, do this. Figure out what you agree on. I'll close with this thing here. The people fight, number one thing that marriages break up about is money. Number one thing. Number two is children. Now, let me ask y'all a question. This is not a trick question, okay? So don't think I'm tricking you. Is there anybody in here that would say that they don't really want more money? I mean, don't we all want more money, right? We want to pay more money, pay our bills, be able to go on vacation, take more days off work. Can we agree we all want more money? So do you and your spouse agree that y'all want more money? So the problem isn't that y'all don't agree on the goal, right? The problem is you don't agree on how to get to the goal, right? So if you're arguing about how to get to the goal and you can't agree, just say, okay, hold on a second. Well, we both can at least agree that the goal is to have more money in our savings account, right? Or the goal is to be able to buy a car, or the goal is to be able to buy a house, or the goal is to be able to go on a vacation. Let's agree on our goal. Then let's pray about our process. See what I'm saying? I can't tell you how many times we've disagreed about something. Like, say somebody wanted something, wanted money or something, and we disagreed on it or whatever. We weren't sure didn't know if we wanted to do it or not. Wasn't sure if we should. Didn't know how much. We'd pray about it. A few hours later, next day, that afternoon, whatever, I'd say, did you pray about it? I did. What'd you think? She'd tell me. I go, well, that's exactly what I was told too. God told us the same thing. He ain't going to tell her one thing and tell me something different. Right? So we agree on the goal. Let's pray about the process. All right, let's go with your kids real quick. Anybody here does not want their kids to be successful? Anybody here going to say, I want my kid, I'm going to put my hand up, I want my kid to be in jail, homeless? No, right? You want your child to be successful. You want your child to fulfill their purpose. You want your child to have a relationship with God. You want your child to be kind. You want your child to have somebody that loves them, that has somebody they can grow with, somebody they can laugh with. Y'all can agree on that, right? Do you and your spouse agree on that? Yeah, but you know what you don't agree on? How to accomplish that. This is good for them, or this is not good for them, or this friend, or that friend, or this phone, or that school, or this, that, or the other. You don't agree on the process, but you agree on the goal. So then just say to each other, listen, we agree on the goal. We both want the same thing. Let's pray about the process and let God show us the process. And I promise you, God will not tell you something different than he tells her or him. He won't. He will tell you the same thing. Okay. Let's stand.